Mentoring research. Nearly a full day had passed since the Empress had departed for the Rock. The Dark Angel fleet remained in orbit just out of reach of the Crusade fleet and Caesarea's planetary defense batteries, holding a tight picket around the Rock. New forces summoned to the Empress banner had arrived, some bringing new troops to the battlefield below while others took up places in the line of battle. All that remained was for the other side to make the first move. Corax watched the Dark Angel fleet from the bridge of the Empress flagship. Outside of their general patrols and a few smaller craft darting in and out to test the Crusade's resolve, the opposing fleet remained motionless. Fortunately, the Crusade fleet had not risen to take the bait, but with the Empress' departure and the Minotaurs having moved their strength back to the fleet, there was no knowing how long before the more impulsive captains grew tired of waiting. Lord Corax. Corax turned as one of the bridge officers approached. "Pardon the intrusion, my lord, but Lady Terra has asked to speak with you." "Did she say why?" Corax asked. He had a good idea of what the young psyker wanted, but there was nothing wrong about obtaining information to better solidify his position. "She did not say much, my lord," the officer said. "She seemed concerned, for a lack of a better term. Perhaps it is mere worry for the Empress and her return." "Perhaps." There was a pause. "Send her in." The officer bowed and walked off, leaving Corax alone once more as he watched the fleets. Perhaps it was worry, but there was plenty the girl dealt with that could have drawn her to the Primarch. It was just up to her to divulge that information, and Corax to use it for the Imperium's advantage. He heard uncertain steps behind him, turning his eye slightly to see Terra approaching. She was dressed in the light purple armor the Empress had crafted for her, a slight glow following her from the residual psychic powers traveling through the Amor. She stood in a loose stance, her hands tucked away at her sides as he looked at Corax. "You wished to speak with me, young Terra?" he asked, keeping his focus on the fleet. "You weren't in your quarters when I checked, so I figured you would be here." Terra replied. Corax said nothing as Terra continued. "I just wanted to see how you were doing with the Empress gone." "I do not require constant watching, Terra," Corax replied. "If anything, I would believe you would be more concerned with your own well-being after your actions on Caesarea. I've been dealing with that in my own time." Corax could sense a small wavering in Terra's voice. "The sisters have been help, with their training and all. Even what is assumed as beneficial leaves some threats hidden." Corax replied. "Discipline can only be maintained for so long when zealotry is brought in to complicate the mind." "I like to think I've managed," Terra countered. There was a pause before Terra spoke again. "But then others haven't been so lucky, or else we wouldn't be in a standoff like this. The seeds of what we see here were planted 15,000 years ago, Terra," Corax said. "Conflict with other factions of the Imperium is to be expected as the Empress brings more under her power. I suppose things were different back when you were first fighting for the Imperium then." Corax gave her a glance as she backtracked. "Sorry, I know how sensitive you are about the past. It is nothing too personal, and you are not wholly wrong." Corax looked back to the Dark Angel fleet. "My brothers and I had our squabbles, even before Horus' fall and the heresy. It is only natural when one considers how each of us were raised with different ideas of war and statesmanship. A few months ago I could have given you an entire lecture on how difference make us stronger, and that by looking to our own faults we can become stronger together." Terra shrugged. "Then I remind myself that sometimes the Imperium doesn't want to hear what I have to say, so I won't bore you with it." Corax turned his head fully towards Terra. "Bitterness," he said. "It drips from your words like dew. Has the Imperium truly broken you to the point where you do nothing to change it?" "I am trying to change it," Terra shot back. "Just not in the ways I'm used to, that's all. The sisters listen to me like I'm some kind of holy person. Mashes has been too busy with the war, the Empress is." Terra made a vague gesture towards the Dark Angels. "That just leaves you, and you're more content to be alone, so I've had to improvise a little." "No doubt." Corax looked away again. "You drift closer and closer towards the broken shells that have populated this realm since the fall. A pity that one so innocent is twisted into the very thing they despise. Don't think just because I'm frustrated I've given in." Terra countered. "Think about your own experiences. When you're faced with an obstacle, you adapt and overcome, trying to find new ways to go about in your attacks against your enemies. Just think of it like that, but on a smaller scale. And have you had any success in this endeavor? I've gotten you to talk more in the last minute than you have since I first met you. Corax remained silent for several moments, trying to think of a proper response to the girl. The fate of the Imperium rested in the balance, and she considered mere talk to be a sign of success. But then, such simple matters are what keep humanity strong, are they not? I suppose that is why you sought me out today, he asked. Well, yes. She replied. I knew you were upset that the Empress did not allow you to accompany her on her mission to the Dark Angels, so I wanted to see what you were doing and if there was anything I could do to help. I appreciate your concern, but I do not believe that a counselor is what I need at this point. Believe me, you're not the first person who's said no when I only want to talk with them. Terra shrugged. That, at least, I have some experience with, otherwise you'd still be hiding out in that cave while the rest of the galaxy moved on without you. Of course. Corax shifted slightly. If there is nothing else you wish to discuss, I have other matters to attend to. Besides staring out the window and waiting for the Dark Angels to do something. Terra asked. Corax could see her drawing closer, gently placing a hand against his arm. I'm not the only one that needs to worry about the Imperium breaking them down to a broken shell, Corax. You've been through so much more than I ever will. I just want to help, whoever I can and however I can. Corax paused again. The temptation to rebuff the girl, to give some pleasantry to set her mind at ease, not at the Primarch's mind. But then, this was also the girl that had led him towards a brighter path, away from constant seclusion and suffering. I thank you, Terra, for your concern. Corax looked to Terra. Truly, I do. I am perhaps not the fragile figure that you think I am, but seeing one such as you having concern for the others around them, it is welcome. Corax looked towards the rock. There are others that do not seem to share such concerns. You're not still angry at the Empress for not allowing you to join her on the mission, are you? Terra asked. You make it seem like it is some petty slight that is driving our forces apart. Corax replied. The Empress is powerful, but she is no god. There are times I wonder whether she remembers that fact when taking on these tasks. Believe me, you're not the only one that has worries like that. Terra said. But then would she be who she is if we were always worrying about her, second-guessing her decisions every chance we had? Corax said nothing. I know you've had a lot to think about, and I know you still believe that you have to prove yourself to the Empress for her to accept you, but you don't have to punish yourself like this. You are not alone anymore. Silence reigned on the bridge for several moments, Corax mulling over Terra's assurances. Finally, the woman began to draw away. I see you're still focused on your duties, she said. Just let me know if there's anything else I can do. She turned to leave before Corax spoke again. Stay, he said. If you have no other duties, stay here with me. Perhaps, with your presence, we might continue to keep a level head about our forces, and perhaps you might learn something in regards to commanding troops. Oh, Terra shuffled her feet for a moment. Uncertainty perhaps, but Corax could detect more than a bit of surprise that her attempt at reaching him had produced some fruit. Though how long before you are further broken down remains to be seen. I would be glad to. Terra stepped back, taking a spot next to Corax before speaking again. So, what exactly do you see from up here? I don't just mean physically, but tactically. It is all a matter of misdirection, Corax began, breaking down the intricacies of the Dark Angel's deployment such that Terra could understand. It would keep the student occupied for a while, perhaps even allow her to bring a little more perspective into her mission to help others. And, as much as Corax would hate to admit it, perhaps allow a little more lost humanity to return to him. Twilight set aside the latest tome in her research and gave a stretch. She had taken a day off from her training with the sister and her discussions with Corax to read more, and after several hours of study she was reminded once more that among many things the Imperium did not approve of, comfortable libraries were one of them. She marked her place in her book and stood, turning towards the door and stepping back out in the hall. Sister Veronica had joined her, waiting patiently outside the room Twilight had chosen as a study while she read. She did not participate in the reading herself, content to stand guard and watch while Twilight delved deeper into her research. Not that Twilight did not try to engage her, and had managed some success at times, but the sisters still seemed more content to watch and observe. No doubt to make up for what had happened on Caesarea, but that was in the past, all that remained was to move on. "I need to move around a bit more," she said. "Mind joining me for a quick walk?" "Of course, Tara." Veronica nodded, falling in step next to Twilight. "I trust your research is going well." "Well as ever, I suppose," Twilight said, giving a shrug. "It's a bit dense at times, and other times I feel like I'm reading the same praises to the Empress I'd read 2 minutes ago, but it's still quite fascinating." I am sure there was a pause before Veronica continued. "I know that I have been a bit hesitant to join you in your studies, but I have been meaning to ask, well, my sisters have been meaning to ask, really, what is it that you are reading about beyond scripture and military treatises?" "I have been trying to brush up on history, really," Twilight said. "Anything about the early Imperium, Korux, the Lion, all information like that." "Isn't that forbidden?" "Not if you're the Empress' personal student, I suppose." Twilight gave a small sigh. "And it's not like they would have to worry too much because there's barely anything there. All I find are bits and pieces of information that are so bogged down in mysticism and other superstition that I can barely get anything out that I didn't already know." Twilight looked at Veronica. "You wouldn't happen to know anything about that time, would you?" "Just what they taught us through sermons and scripture," Veronica said. "The galaxy was an untamed and dangerous world until the light of the Emperor was imparted upon them. That light was darkened when traitors and heretics rose up against the Imperium, and it is our task to bring them to task and return that light to mankind once more. The Primarch were chosen servants of the Emperor, the physical embodiment of his will, his power." The sister hesitated for a moment before chuckling. "Though seeing the Empress' own power, I think the old preachers might have been selling her a bit short in their tales." "Probably. Either that or over-exaggerating," but Twilight dared not challenge the sister's idea of Celestia's divinity. "Sorry if that is not what you are looking for," Veronica said. "I wish I had more to offer, but I am not sure if our knowledge is exactly what you need if you are researching history." "It has its place," Twilight countered. "To know how faiths and legends develop, to see how they have shaped you and your ways of life, that is just another part of the story that a lot of people tend to overlook. You said it yourself, the Empress is grander in person than she is in the old stories, but the old stories did have a place in developing our ideas of her." I suppose you're right. You're still welcome to join me if you want," Twilight said, giving the sister a smile. "You can see for yourself how things have changed, and maybe help me find some of the older information I've been looking for. I know not everyone can stay focused on research like I can, but it's always nice to have a study buddy now and again." "Study buddy?" Veronica asked, giving Twilight an odd look. "I cannot say I am familiar with that term." "Right, why would they know what that is?" "It's a learning companion. Someone to bounce ideas off of and such, to get research done faster," Twilight said. "Oh, I see." Veronica nodded. "Sorry, some of your more casual expressions are a bit unusual. I think only Judith can understand all that you say at times. You'll pick it up in time," Twilight said. "I find it's a nice way to break away from some of the grimness around here. No offense, but you all are a bit too serious at times." "It is merely the reality that we deal with," Veronica replied. "You have seen for yourself what this galaxy has to offer. There is little room for joy when surrounded on all sides by terrors." "Yes," Twilight looked away for a moment. "But I also know what it's like when you allow yourself to fall into despair and feel that nothing you can do will make a difference. All it takes is a reminder of the strength you have within yourself, with your friends and family, and you can rise back up from that pit." I suppose." Now it was Veronica's turn to look away, Twilight watching the sister from the corner of her eye. "Apologies, we were often told that hope is a dangerous thing, something that can lead to unfathomable betrayal if we rely on it too much. But having no hope at all is no better. Why else would you or anyone else here still fight without some kind of hope? Veronica did not appear to have an answer for this, so Twilight continued. You know why I'm trying to find all that information we talked about, right? To better help the Imperium, of course. Veronica replied quickly. Not just the Imperium, but Korux, the Empress, you and your sisters, everyone. Twilight turned her attention forward as she continued. I haven't been here for very long, but I've been here long enough to see that you all both shun and obsess over the past, all those failures and miscalculations. I figured that if I could understand a little of this. I don't know, masochistic pride? Martyrdom culture? Whatever it is, if I understand why you all think this way, maybe then I might be able to help you all better understand yourselves. She paused as she thought over her next words. And maybe help you actually make victories last and feel more meaningful, instead of having every single thing be seen as leading to inevitable doom. Veronica was silent, her jaw working as she tried to think of an answer for Twilight. Twilight allowed her a few more moments before speaking again. I know, it's not really that well thought out, but it's better than just standing by and watching you all beat yourselves up before you even go out to battle. No, it's, Veronica started. Well, perhaps it is a bit silly, but it is a noble goal to be sure. If there is anything I can do to spread this message, please tell me. I am sure my sisters as well would be more than willing to help. I'd really appreciate that. Twilight said, giving Veronica another smile. Now, let's get back to studying. I want to have at least some idea of what we're getting into before the Empress returns.